So Alabama's defense might have a couple of tricks up its sleeve for 2025. Let's talk about it. What is up, everybody? Clint Lamb with A to Z Sports and Cover Crimson. So Alabama's defense last year got a little criticism at times. Now, don't get me wrong, Kane Wommack, first-year defensive coordinator after a long tenure under Nick Saban. The fact that they did such a good job of continuously improving throughout last season, that was more than encouraging. I mean, it was a long time under Nick Saban. Things were done a certain way. It was always going to be a transition period. But there was some criticism at times as far as being a little bit vanilla on defense, maybe doing the same thing over and over or a little bit too much, maybe not enough disguising things. And that had some people at least somewhat concerned about what things were going to look like under Kane Wommack moving forward. Well, I'm here to tell you it's going to look a lot different in year two than it did in year one. Like I said, year one was a transition period. There was a lot of adjustments being made, whether it be coaching staff getting to know the players or players getting to know the coaching staff. And with that, needing to be established as far as being able to go out there and trust maybe some of the younger members in the secondary or at various positions on the field, transfer guys who are playing in a new system. It was limiting as far as what Kane Wommack could do and how he wanted to be able to call things. But now that that is all out the way, guys are comfortable with Wommack, Wommack's comfortable with the guys, he can be a lot more creative and implement more of what he wants to do defensively in year two. And at a place like Alabama, you're going to have the horses to kind of do what you want to. You have everything at your disposal pretty much. And we are seeing examples of that being made, whether it be at practice or with some of the things that were said to the media following Kane Wommack's press conference. Now, the first thing we'll talk about is what was going on the practice field when we were able to go to practice on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, the defense was able to go out there and watch a little bit of practice, and the back half of the defense was doing something interesting as far as the personnel that was on the field. There was a wolf on the line of scrimmage, which is going to be your jack or your edge outside linebacker type. Got some flexibility, but you had one guy on the line of scrimmage. You had one off-ball linebacker, and you had 6 defensive backs on the field at the same time. And that included 3 cornerbacks and 3 safeties. And with the starting group, it was Dijon Lee on the perimeter, Damani Jackson on the perimeter. You had Zabian Brown kind of lining up as a nickel corner. And then you had 3 safeties, Keon Sabb, Bray Hubbard, and Zay Mincy. All of these guys were on the field together. And that's just something that we haven't really seen under Kane Wommack. You haven't really seen him get out of that 4-2-5 personnel looks with the 4 defensive linemen, or really it can be viewed as a 3-3-5 if you want to view that wolf as a linebacker, either a 4-2-5 or a 3-3-5. You haven't seen him stray away from that really regardless of the situation. Now, granted, you might see some different personnel groupings, maybe getting a couple of bandits on the field or something like that, but it's kind of been the same. But what this is telling us is that they're going to have what I would call a dime defense where you get 6 defensive backs onto the field and only have 1 linebacker. But not only that, you saw a lot of different looks out of that. You saw the 3 high safeties. You saw one of those safeties walk down into the box, for example, Bray Hubbard, where he would line up next to that lone off-ball linebacker, provide another dime linebacker presence. And so I love the flexibility that can give Alabama's defense in those obvious passing situations. And when you're talking about getting the best players on the field, we know Alabama's secondary is easily the deepest and most talented group on the entire roster. So, of course, you would want to have some sort of way to get more of those guys on the field if the situation presents itself. And the 2 guys that you would want to get on the field probably the most would be Zay Mincy and Dijon Lee, the true freshman, the 5-star true freshman who Kane Wommack described as being a starting caliber player for this defense. So that's the first thing that really gets me fired up and excited about year 2 under Kane Wommack. But not only that, we also heard about Jamarian Latham, and now he's playing up to 4 different positions, according to Kane Wommack, which he said when he addressed the media following practice the other day. And so from my point of view, I'm like, okay, he's playing Wolf. We know he has the ability to play Bandit despite the lost weight, but what else is he doing? Well, Jamarian Latham was asked about that, and not only did he mention those 2 positions, but he also brought up that he's playing nose and kind of a cheetah package style, and he's also playing that kind of stacked linebacker when they do go with those 3-3-5 looks. So that's certainly encouraging for a guy like Jamarian Latham, and probably a topic worth talking about. But I want to hone in on that cheetah package comment from Latham, because I think that's really important. We had wondered if Alabama would implement more of that kind of thing, We know under Nick Saban, they had what was called the cheetah package. You had 3 outside linebacker edge types on the line of scrimmage as defensive linemen, along with 1 true defensive lineman. And typically, Jermaine Latham was that player for Nick Saban as well. That knows that 1 true interior defensive lineman. Then you had, sometimes it was Will Anderson playing on the interior with Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell on the outside. Sometimes it was Chris Braswell on the interior. But either way, it was kind of a strain on opposing offenses as far as in an obvious passing situation, if you could trust the personnel out there to be able to get the stop and not allow the offense to go hurry up and, leave that personnel on the field, you could do a lot with that type of package, and it can really put a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Well, with what Alabama has up front, whether it be the Bandits, whether it be the Wolves, a lot of depth, you can have a lot of rotation. It does sound like we're going to be getting a lot of that in 2025, which is automatically going to make things look a lot different than it did in 2024. So I'm really excited to see what Kane Wommack is able to do with this defense this season, because we already are expecting it to be one of the better defenses in college football, and throwing some flavor or some variety in there is only going to make life more difficult for opposing offenses.